welcome to the program today. I hope you've got your coffee. You know, I've heard one definition of coffee is liquid that is fresh ground from heaven. And I tend to agree and endorse that message. So happy you're here. God is so good. He's on the throne. Today we have a great program, and we are talking about a kingdom message that many of us ascribe to in theory, but living it out and putting it into practice becomes very challenging. For example, our buddy Peter in Matthew 18:21 and 22 goes to Jesus. No doubt he was in the middle of, a day of ministry and teaching. And he says, how many times should I forgive my brother who keeps on offending me? 7 times? And I think Peter thought he was being really holy by suggesting that 7 was a good number. And then in his amazing style and finesse, Jesus answers him, no, Peter, not 7 times, but 70 times 7 in one day. Wow. I am sure that was not the message that he was expecting to hear. And yet, what happens to us in our life? Well, we're offended. We get our feelings hurt. We're frustrated. There's misunderstandings. All around us, things arise, big issues, small issues, and everything in between. And we are faced with the dilemma, to forgive or not to forgive. That is the question. And we get to decide in each instance whether we are going to have an unoffendable heart. The only way we can do that is if we make a choice, partner with the Holy Spirit, and ask for His help in extending forgiveness to ourselves, to others, to our parents, to teachers, to well-meaning adults in our past. And here's another thought. How about if we make a decision to not only forgive things from our past, things in our present, but just to make a decision to live a lifestyle of forgiveness for anything that will happen in the future. That is one of the things that we strive to do as children of God. And my guest today is going to share a very powerful story. You want to stay tuned about forgiveness, receiving forgiveness, forgiving himself, and extending forgiveness. Now, before we do that, let's go down the street to the Homekeepers set and visit our friend Stephanie. She has an amazing recipe. It is chocolate-covered bananas. Anything with chocolate, I'm there. So I cannot wait to see how to make this great recipe. Let's go join Stephanie.
And I'm back, alone in the kitchen, because Arthleen Rippey, as you know, decided to retire. And she was worried about what she was going to do, but I can promise you she is enjoying it thoroughly. She keeps posting on Facebook, 8:35, just got up, having tea in bed. Huh, okay, so I post little mean gifs of little girls waving a hairbrush at her. She's enjoying her time, I promise you. She was here for so long. She blessed us for so many years, and now it's time for her to just rest and be blessed, although I don't think she's going to rest much. So my goal is healthy, yummy, frugal recipes for you guys, but in that, it doesn't mean it can't be a treat, right? So today we're going to do chocolate-covered bananas, frozen bites. So what I did, I took 2 bananas, I sliced them, I put them in the freezer, okay? And then I have a 1.5 cups of dark chocolate, which is good for you, right? I melted that in the microwave. I added a tablespoon of coconut oil and a pinch of salt. The salt accentuates the flavor. Don't skip that part, okay? It accentuates the flavor. It cuts down any bitterness. Little side note. I love coffee, but sometimes it burns my stomach. If you put a little baking soda in it, it takes away the bitterness, so the salty part of that. So just a little side note for you. So I melted the chocolate. Watch it because you don't want it to seize up on you. So do it for a minute and then do it every 30 seconds and check it. Okay, so I have this yummy, delicious dark chocolate with coconut oil and salt. Looks good, doesn't it? I also have chopped peanuts, I have chopped pecans, and I have some sprinkles. If you remember, I'm always telling you, get your children in the kitchen. This is the perfect recipe for that. Get your grandchildren in the kitchen. I promise you they will remember those days. My daughter remembers the days that she was in the kitchen with me. And she talks about it and still makes the banana bread that we used to make. So super, super simple. You're going to take your frozen banana pieces. You're going to put them in the chocolate. So good. And then you're going to put them on parchment paper. And then you're going to want to put your topping on immediately because the chocolate is going to get hard from the coconut oil. That's what the coconut oil does in your chocolate. It makes like a beautiful chocolate magic shell. That's why you don't want to skip it. It doesn't really help with the flavor. And if you don't have coconut oil, it's okay. It will still work. Use what's in your house, right? So I'm going to dip. It's a little messy, right? Oh, especially when my pan is so far away. Let your kids do all the toppings. Let them pick the toppings. Let them put on the toppings. And this is more healthy than, say, the chocolate cake I would like to have after lunch. I'll have a chocolate banana bite. It will take away my, take away my want for sweets. And it's portion controlled. I'm trying, people. I'm trying. Here we go. And there's so many other toppings you could use. Use your imagination. Use what's in your pantry. Use what's in your house. So cute. That's all I'm going to do for you. I'm not going to sit through all of my bananas. So these are chocolate-covered bananas, frozen bites. And let me show you the ones that I made earlier. Look how adorable they are. So cute. And I'm going to try one because I haven't even tried one yet all morning. That is delicious. So good. Chocolate, nuts, banana, healthy. So good. So stay tuned. You'll know how to get this recipe. It'll come up on the screen. And I can't wait to see you guys again.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think I can eat those for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Bananas, chocolate, yes. So, thanks for staying tuned, and I'd like to show you a video that will give you a little insight into our next guest. Take a look.
New Year's is usually the deadliest day on roads across the country because of crashes related to alcohol. And in 2002, two families' lives were changed forever when a then 19-year-old man drove drunk and killed a woman in a wrong-way accident. In the 15 years since, he has asked for and received forgiveness and is now dedicating his life to keep others, including his victim's nephew, from going down the same path. NBC's Kerry Sanders has his story.
The John Templeton driving the car and the one in that mugshot are 15 years apart.
I never planned to drink that night. I never certainly planned to drink and drive.
Only 19 at the time, John drove his car drunk, speeding on the wrong side of a Tampa interstate, slamming into two cars, killing 18-year-old Julie Buckner.
I think about Julie and just that this is the spot where at 18 years old, her life ended because of my choice.
A drinking and driving story that, as you'll see, takes turns no one could have ever expected. It begins with a highly unusual admission, as the Highway Patrol report noted on the night of the accident, with a blood alcohol of .225, John Templeton confessed. "I knew better than to drink and drive," he said. "What will her family think of me?"
Wow. Before I introduce our guest today, what I didn't tell you before the clip is that that story involved me and my family. Julie Buckner was my baby sister, and she was 18 years old. And that incident began a healing journey, a redemption journey, and a forgiveness journey. And that is what we are here to talk about today. So may I introduce to you John Templeton. Thanks for being with us today.
Jennifer, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
So that was almost 2 decades ago that happened. And the pain of it and the reality of it, it never goes away.
No.
And what's unique, I think, about this story is that according to the law and according to the court system and according to lawyers and wise counsel, we were really never supposed to meet or talk. And yet you defied all of that advice and all of those suggestions. And I clearly remember the day that you came to the place where I worked and you and your dad said that you wanted to talk.
I remember that as well. And I'm always very moved and gotta get emotional as well when I see the clips and, you know, see a young Julie and,
It's never easy.
Yeah.
It's never easy to talk about.
No, and I'm sitting here so blessed, and I'm so I'm really so happy and so grateful to be here to discuss what I have been a recipient of is forgiveness and the impact it's had on my life, and hopefully the impact I've been able to have on others. And 2 decades later, you know, the 19-year-old with the little scruff and the University of South Florida student who found himself in a position that he never thought he would be. And I never thought that I would be in this position, you know, 2 decades later. And I basically woke up from a blackout, and I considered myself a normal college student, and I can look back in hindsight and see that there was underlying issues developing, and consumption of alcohol and binge drinking. And I woke up to a blackout, handcuffed to a hospital gurney, and being told by a state trooper, Corporal Burke, and now I'm awake. I remember everything from this point on. He told me I was in a motor vehicle accident that resulted in the death of an 18-year-old young woman on Interstate 275. And that moment hit me, and it shook me in my core, and I just felt like my soul was shattered. I felt like my life was sucked out of me. And I was acutely aware at that moment that somebody that was just on this earth living their life happy, and it was just this surreal feeling that they're no longer here. And I knew that I was very acutely aware now that there's not a ripple but a tidal wave that's about to hit her family with this terrible loss and this news. So, 20 years later, that moment I didn't think I'd be sitting with you. 20 years later.
Only God.
Yes.
Only God can do things like that. And our willingness to hear him. You know, I remember the day that you came to the office, and I remember going to the accident scene. I was the only one in my family that did, just for identification purposes and, to validate. And, but then I remember, you coming. And I remember when they announced that John Templeton Sr. and Jr. were there, I started shaking and my heart was racing and I started crying. And I remember saying, my husband came in and said, "Can you do this?" And I said, "I want to." And I remember saying, "God, how do I do this?" And the Holy Spirit impressed on my heart, you can forgive him now or you can forgive him later, but you have to forgive him. And I remember saying, I want to forgive him now, I don't want to carry bitterness. I don't want to carry a grudge. I don't want to be offended. I don't want to ruin any more of life. And I thought that's what Julie would want. And I knew it's what Jesus would want, but Jesus, being so sweet, gave me an option. And he let me choose. And I said, if you will help me, I want to forgive him now. And then that was the first time I came face to face with you. And I remember, just seeing the sincerity and the vulnerability, the fear, the regret in your eyes. And that made it easier, I think, than somebody, that didn't take responsibility and that didn't want to make amends. And I think that was such a huge, important heart issue. And I remember just being so impressed that at 19, you cared, that you cared and that you wanted God to intervene in this horrible, messy, tragic, very fatal and final, situation as it pertained to my sister. But I know that there was a long journey from that day forward. So what are some of the struggles, throughout that first year, 2 years, 3 years that you went through in just wrestling with yourself and walking through that?
Jennifer, I look back, I was brought up in the church. I remember years ago, as a Catholic, receiving my first Holy Communion, and in second grade, I put a little holy water in my bedroom, and I forgot about that for years. And it was cool at the time, and I liked prayer, and I liked, asking for guidance, and I loved the Lord. And then I look at time went by, and I got complacent. It was foxhole prayers, and I think about that moment meeting with you, and I know that was the guy under there the whole time that really always wanted to do the right thing. And, through just a lot of the temptations and probably insecurities and fears, and we make choices as young people and adults that I think lead us astray. And I desperately wanted to come back, and when I felt distant, it wasn't God that moved away, it was John. And I desperately needed him there. And I was surprised too that you were there because we were invited to come to the place that you worked. And, I knew I was guilty. There was I felt terrible for this family. I still have a younger sister. And I think I have kids now. And I think if this happened, I'd be so angry and so hurt. But I would at least want to act how I would want that person to act, and to try to, extend, just how sorry I was. And I know that was my personal hell. I felt so depressed. I felt so low. At that moment, though, in that time period, I had no future. I didn't see any deservingness of forgiveness on my part or anybody. And that changed my life. Whether I was going to go to 15 years in prison or not, that moment of you and your husband Rob and embracing after that and holding hands and praying, it was a divine experience, and it was a divine intervention that I knew that God was there and He could carry me through this period. But it was a struggle for a long, long time. I felt like a broken man.
Yeah. And I love how you said, when we do forgive, and Jesus was clear about it, it is divine. Forgiveness is divine. And it's what Jesus preached, and it's what He calls us to do. It's not easy. It's not easy. And I think sometimes we withhold forgiveness as humans against ourselves and others, because somehow we think that by forgiving, we're saying that what the other person did was okay, and that it gets them off the hook or it releases them. And I know you struggled with that as well.
Exactly. So I think you would ask me, and other people would ask me, have you forgiven yourself? And I felt like it was wrong to say yes, or it was wrong that John would ever forgive himself, because in my mind, I mean, it was really, really wrong. It was a selfish decision. There was just so much self-absorption and that act that led to that. And, you know, I didn't realize, though, that really I was just thinking of myself, and I was caught up in myself. And, you know, I'd never say that that's okay, obviously, you know, and I know how deeply I hurt people, but I've come to the process of, you know, I have a wonderful family that loved me, and I had people that were loving me and giving me forgiveness and I always say that I didn't deserve. And really that set the path for me. I kept praying, I kept trying to do the right thing. And for me, I think I had to get into action as well, because I really thought about Julian, and, you know, this young woman can't walk into this classroom and tell you how great life was until a drinking and driving accident, you know, an underage drinking led to her, you know, losing her life. And but I was me, and I had the opportunity to do that for both of us, and to try to make that change. So, you know, I realized that I had to forgive myself, and never did I ever say that it was okay, but I had to forgive myself to really be beneficial and to be of service to other people. 'Cause I was 19. Was I going to spend the next 60, 70 years of my life in self-pity and depression, and then be a drain on society or my loved ones, or could I, you know, one tiny way to make amends is to change your behavior. I could never. I had to do everything I can to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again, and do what I can to help other people from not making that happen. And I felt like that was my journey. And today I can look in the mirror. I love holding my 5- and 7-year-old daughters. They kiss me on the cheek at the same time. It's our thing in the morning, and I love that I'm a dad for them. And I know that I wouldn't have been there and able to be there for them and be of service to other people without first forgiving myself. And, you know, one thing I do share, though, quickly, I remember in that hospital bed, before my parents came up to the hospital to see me, being charged with DUI manslaughter, and the state trooper told me that the victim's sister, you know, Julie's sister, went to the scene of the crash. I knew that happened by the state trooper telling me, and that her sister called the hospital to check to see how the young person was doing, just because she hoped 2 lives weren't ruined. So,
well, what you just described is recovery, and it's restoration, and it's taking, you know, something heinous and making it beautiful. And I'd like to just go to a video to show quickly what you are doing right now.
Footprints Beachside Recovery, it's a boutique style treatment center for people with addictions and dual diagnosis issues.
Footprints is unique because we have a very small census, so small group settings, so we can really work with clients one-on-one. There's the buzzword for individualized treatment and care, but this truly is individualized.
It's all client-centric. If we err probably on the side of having too much staff. If we're anywhere to 15 to 18 in clients, that's the number that we have. We have about 16, 17 employees, so there's always a 1-to-1 ratio. I just encourage anybody to ask any other place what their ratio is, staff to clients.
They care about us individually. You're not just a number. They want to see us do well. That's why I can call any person here at any time of the day or night, and they're going to answer and make sure I'm okay. And that I know is unique to this program.
So, Footprints Beachside Recovery Center was established in 2008.
that's correct.
And it was your journey, the forgiveness, the redemption, the receiving the forgiveness, the deciding not to give up on life and to wallow, led to a ministry that is helping others and equipping others and enabling others to receive freedom from addiction. And what I love about this, John, is this was not part of your sentence. This is your heart. Now, I'm sure some are wondering, well, what happened in the court system? And so, you know, very quickly what happened is that when you went to trial that day. The judge said it was the most emotional case he had ever had. He said that the courtroom was more full than he'd ever had a courtroom, and there were extra bailiffs there, and many people came and testified on both sides. And then the most touching part of that court experience was when, once again, I'm sure against your counsel and in front of what could have been a lot of hostile people, you turned around and you addressed everyone there from Julie's family, and you wept and you shared your heart and you begged for mercy and grace and forgiveness. And the judge wept over this case, and he decided to give you a very unusual sentence that did not involve 15 years of your life behind bars, but what did involve is you going out and speaking and working with young people for thousands of hours, of you having a picture of Julie on your person at all times, and many other things. But even when all of those things were complete, I love that you decided that you were going to use your story, this story, to help others. So tell me how that was kind of birthed in our last little minute here.
Sure. I mean, God just led me into it. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, we had an opportunity to open up a small business that we realized, guys, we were helping, stop drinking. They had other issues. And so we put them together with a therapist. And then we said, well, we should get a license. And we never knew it would be a business. We never knew it would be a licensed treatment center. And, I never knew that I'd be the president of a drug and alcohol rehab. And, I love what I do every single day. It's challenging. And, I think God prepared me for this moment to help others that are struggling. And it's, the number one cause of death right now from 18 to 43-year-olds in the United States is overdose. And, it was 17,000 just a couple years ago. So we have a huge problem in our hands. And, but I'm glad that I'm just so fortunate and blessed that I'm in this position to now turn what Jennifer told me a long time ago, I'll never forget, turn my mess into a message and my test into a testimony. And that hit me in my heart, and that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
I appreciate it. We could talk for hours. I'll have to have you come back and we'll unpack more. But I just want to encourage you, forgiveness is messy, it's difficult, but with God's help, you can forgive, you can release, you can receive forgiveness. And the New Testament says, when much forgiveness is given, much love is given. And we've seen that in John's life by him extending love to others. I encourage you, extend love to, forgive, and ask Jesus to help you forgive. Forgive yourself.